for different things. And then you decide which of your paint colors, your metallic colors, and I prefer that you use metallic, but you could use your white or a different color, to coat your other pieces. Now I suggest that you use plenty, and remember, what you don't use today, you'll be able to bag up and use on another painting. So here I'm going to put my rice in. You can still use the same stir because it's not going to hurt for you to get some of that Modge Podge on this. And I'm going to use my bright gold. Let's see. I'm going to use my bright gold and put it in to coat my rice. I'm going to squeeze it in there pretty good. And stir it up. Now I will tell you, I suggested that you use disposable dishes.
Elaine,
Yes.
me and Terry are lost for a minute here. Okay, you have the rock salt mixed with the Modge Podge. Do we put color in it?
No.
Too? Do we
want the rock salt to stay clear.
Okay, but if it's pink, ours is pink. We don't want it pink.
Okay, then you choose another color. You choose whatever color you want.
Okay.
Out of your palette.
And the second thing, how long will the Modge Podge stay on that and not dry?
Lynn, say that a little bit louder. I'm sorry, I may have to turn my volume up. Give me just a second.
Okay.
Okay, what did you say, Lynn?
How long does the Modge Podge sit without drying?
It'll stay the length of time that we're doing it. It'll be okay.
Okay. Okay, that's what my question was. We're okay then, because we were just trying to catch up and we're running. So
it's okay. Yeah. We don't care if it dries or not. It'll be fine. Oh, I love the way this rice looks. Now, the rice that my daughter had at the house today was not a standard rice, but it was like a really short basmati rice, but I think it's beautiful. I'm having a hard time hearing them, and I don't know why, but it's okay. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to continue through your different elements. Choose whichever colors you want to use. I do suggest that that you use your different metallics for your different elements. Like this, I'm going to use the bronze here to do my eggshells with.
Elaine, are you putting the Modge Podge in the other elements or just the rock salt?
No, the Modge Podge at this point is only for the rock salt because we wanted to keep it clear.
Okay.
The rest of it, we're just using our acrylic paint to coat our different elements. Now, with your eggshells, you're welcome to leave them the color they are if you want them to be. It's entirely up to you. And if you don't want to stir something completely and you have different gradations of color in your cup because some of it absorbed more and then some of it absorbed less, that would be nice too. You don't have to have everything completely coated the same color if you choose not to. So we're just going to progress and we're going to continue through all of our cups until we have them colored like we want. I'm gonna try this one in the baggie and see if it works. I think the cup works better, or a paper plate. But it did okay. Just don't leave your bag sealed. If you do it in a plastic bag, leave it open so it can start to dry out a little bit.
Is it better to do the materials with the gold metallic paints?
Use whichever colors you like. Everybody's is going to be different. I am doing mine with the metallics.
Okay.
I'm leaving the rock salt clear, but I'm doing my different elements with the metallics.
Okay.
Now, because so many of the elements are neutral color, like this bag I happen to have a lot of sunflower seeds. So they're natural in color. These are shelled, and I really could have just plastic coated them with the Modge Podge and not painted them at all because they would have retained a neutral color. But you do however you like.
So how many are we supposed to have? Rock salt plus 2, 3, 4?
However many you want. That I was leaving all of that up to the individual. So I always like to have at least the rock salt and 2 other elements. I just think it makes for a more pleasing, odd numbers in flower arrangements and in art, I think, are much more pleasing to the eye than just having 2. But okay, all right, okay. Thought I brought an extra silver, but I didn't.
Are you going to share with us what the different elements mean?
I sure am.
Okay.
As soon as I get mine stirred up, I can talk. I'll keep moving, and I'm gonna read off my sheet then because I can't remember everything off the top of my head. But let me also tell you this: you don't have to use just natural elements. You can use found elements as well. I have used actually fabric. I have saved some dried flowers and used little pieces that I've pinched off of a dried flower. I didn't use the whole flower. It's just I did one really big painting and I wanted just a teensy bit of color just to symbolize something. And so I just had a little tiny piece of a red flower in that. So here's my orzo coated. And there's my eggs and my rice and my rock salt. And here's my pumpkin seeds. Now I wanted to tell you why I suggested a canvas that is 1.5 inches deep or 1.5 inches thick on the side edges. And that is because when you do a standard size canvas, that says to the purchaser, this is going to need to be framed or it is already framed. A gallery wrapped canvas that you see in art shops nowadays is not framed. It's very deep, the edges are very wide, and as we paint today, you're going to need to coat this outside edge of your painting as you do whatever's here. You'll paint here and then you will just carry it over to the edge, whatever you do, and all the way around. and that will be your finished edge. So a gallery wrapped canvas, which is 1.5 inches or larger, will not be a framed piece of artwork. Now, sometimes I like to do my art on a really flat canvas panel, which is just really cardboard backed, a thin piece. And the reason I do that is because perhaps I want to frame it in something that is inexpensive that I can get at Hobby Lobby and just put it in a frame. Even if I take the glass out of the frame, one of those panels will actually fit in a frame that has the glass on the front if you just take the glass out. And so that's a really inexpensive way to create a beautiful piece of art, is if you do it on a panel and you plan to frame it inexpensively like that. So what I like to do is write the symbolism for the type of media that I have put on my paintings on the back of my paintings. I also, all of my paintings I call frontlets, because in the scriptures it talks about how we can hang the scripture on the walls and hang it on the gates and write it on our hands. And so I call my paintings frontlets, because on the back of every one of my paintings I have a different scripture. And so I wanted to encourage you to use the back of your painting to write something special about maybe you created it this day, or who you're going to give this painting to, maybe the special occasion for which you're giving it to someone. You can put the meanings of the symbolism of the items that you're putting on your canvas on the back side, so whoever purchases it or gets it as a gift, or you can remember the symbolic meaning of those different elements. So I wanted to tell you some of the elements while you're finishing up, some of the elements that I've put in some of my art pieces. I've used steel wool that I actually stretched out and just used little pieces of it on one of the paintings that I've done. I have used different types of grasses and stems. Now you have to be careful that those are not so thick that they look like they're added on. You want to be able to embed it into the media so it doesn't look like you've just glued a stick on top of your canvas. I've used beads that I've bought at art store, beads that I've actually bought that are used up to for art that goes on fingernails. I found some beautiful teeny tiny beads and foil for fingernails that I've used in some of my artwork. Metal wire, sand, raw cotton. I've used both coffee granules and actually used real coffee out of a cup in some of my artwork. I've used little tiny pebbles, like, just really small, just a little bit bigger than sand. I've used sand. I've used a piece of glass. You can use a mirror. I've done that. You can use tree bark, broken pottery, and dishes. I know this is the season where somebody in your house may break a Christmas ornament. You'll learn not to always throw those things away. It doesn't hurt to save those and put them in a Ziploc bag, because a Christmas ornament would be beautiful if you have pieces of it you could stick into this piece that we're doing today. You may have some little tiny piece of family memorabilia that you don't know what to do with, but you don't want to lose, and or something that's special to you. And the way that we're going to be employing this flexible modeling paste would allow you to actually embed something like that into the canvas piece as well. So be on the alert as you go on walks, or as you see things, or get ready to put something in the garbage can. Ask yourself if this is something that might be able to fit on your piece of art. Okay, has everybody gotten that part finished? Can I see a thumbs up if you're ready for the next step? Okay, I see lots of people that are about ready. Okay, the next thing we're going to do, and everybody can catch up, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our darkest metallic and we're going to take our darkest neutral color. So mine is going to be my bronze. I'm going to take my bronze. I'm going to use the biggest brush that I brought today. And I'm going to start putting the bronze on my canvas. Now think about those paintings that you saw, what patterns you may like, and we're going to start laying that bronze on our canvas now. I'm going to set those pieces that we've just coated aside so that I have a clear space to start painting on my canvas. Now, the first thing I'd like for you to do is take your widest brush. You can even use a foam brush if that's what you prefer. I hope nobody had to go and buy a big wide brush if you had a painter's brush already at home, because I'm not fussy enough that I think you have to buy the most expensive materials. I inherited some paint from an artist in the last couple of months, and I was so shocked to see that a tube of paint could cost $50. So when you're doing my kind of art, buy whatever you like. Sometimes you may want to spend money on that sort of thing, but you don't have to. Now I'm taking this, and you can use any kind of brush you want, but take your widest brush, dip it in your water, and I want you to start coating your canvas where you want to lay your bronze, and just get that canvas kind of wet. Now I don't want it to be drippy wet, and I don't want it to be solid. So I just want you to brush it over. It's okay if it's not all wet. You can see where some's wet, not all wet, because we want this to be not a fussy painting, but a fun painting. So I'm just laying water. And what's going to happen is once we start putting some color on this, and remember to pay attention to your sides, so you're going to want a little bit on the sides too, because it will be bad if we have to paint the sides at the very end, because it certainly won't match because we're using a bunch of different colors. So it's better to lay that on now. Now, we're going to start at the top of the canvas, because I don't want you to be leaning into the bottom part of the canvas and getting paint on your clothes. So we're going to start near the top or the middle of the canvas. Now remember, you're welcome to use whatever kind of patterns you want to use. So take one of your paper plates, and let's put some bronze on your paper plate, or whatever is the deepest metallic you were able to find. All right. Okay, we're going to start near the top, but remember, we don't have to coat it completely. And I'm just going to start laying on some of the bronze.
Do we need to use the wet paintbrush with that?
No, well, you can. I am.
What do you recommend to everybody?
Whatever you just painted your canvas with the
Okay.
wet. And for some reason, mine is really thin and it's not getting as dark as I expected. So I'm gonna break all the rules and just pour mine right out here on the canvas. Because I don't want it quite that thin. And we don't want it to be solid coated. where it looks like a coloring sheet. We want some variations in your color. And remember to carry it around to your outer edge. All right, so then I'm going to take my darkest neutral, and mine happens to be the gray. I'm going to put it on there. Now remember, you can put your metallic if you want to. I just don't want anybody leaning in and getting it on your clothes. But you can do metallic on both ends and your neutral in the middle if you want. You have the flexibility to do it however you like. Be sure you carry it around to the edges. Now, if you would like, I'm going to take this one and we'll see if I can do it. I don't want anything on anybody's floor or table, but I'm actually going to tilt this canvas a little bit and see if I can get, since it's kind of wet, see if I can get it to run down a little bit, because I think it makes it for a really nice effect when you have some of the moisture coming down the page of the canvas. Then it looks like it flows into each other. But if you don't do that, if you don't have the room or you don't want to risk getting it on something, you don't have to do that part. And I know you know that as you are doing this, however you turn your brush, like if you lay your brush flat, you're going to get a flat look. But if you turn it up on the edge, and dot like this, you're going to have another dimension on that canvas. And this kind of piece is all about dimension. So try turning your brush sideways and creating some texture with the edge of your brush.
We need to keep our brush wet.
No,
Thank you.
you're welcome. In fact, I suggest now, after this is the base coat and we're not going to wet anything else. After you get that done, I suggest you get your brush and wash it and dry it off really good with a paper towel. I've got a bucket right here that I'm doing mine with. Well, you can do it in the sink, of course. Okay, the next thing we're going to do, if anybody needs a break to run to the restroom, we're going to be opening our jars of modeling paste. That's going to be the next thing while this is setting up. And this is where you will use your plastic fork, your palette knife is on this part. Now, modeling paste does come in jars. I have two types here. One's called just regular modeling paste, and this one's called flexible modeling paste. They have different properties. I did not specify which you get, but the flexible modeling paste is more like plastic, and the regular modeling paste is more like plaster. So depending upon your artwork, you may want to swap that up sometimes and try the different ones. There's also modeling paste that comes in the tube, and it's a little more grainy and granular. It's almost like it's got sand in it, the ones that I've used that come in the tube. All of them are okay. You're going to get different effects depending upon which kind of modeling paste you bought. Hobby Lobby always has 40% coupons on their website. So whenever I go to Hobby Lobby, I always use that for my most expensive item that's not on sale. It so happened that all of their Master's Touch, which this is a Master's Touch product, and some of the paints that we've bought are Master's Touch paints. All of those were 50% off this week, and so were Master Touch canvases. This canvas is usually about $70, and I was able to get it in the $35 range. Okay. So I suggest here that you take a scoop of modeling paste if you're ready for that step, and we're going to wait on the others too. Remember, I'm working on a bigger canvas, so it may take me longer than most of you for some of it. But the modeling paste, I'm going to take and put some out on my paper plate. Remember, this is what you do not want to get on your clothes. Now, modeling paste kind of looks like marshmallow cream, the flexible does. And you are able to put it on just like it is and color it later, or you can mix it with your color. I've done it both ways for different effects. So today we're going to take about a couple of tablespoons, about 3 tablespoons. And we're going to take that same color bronze that we did. And we're going to pour it in with this modeling paste to create another texture of bronze. As you mix it up, you may notice that some of the metallic's disappearing, and it looks more of a taupey color. So add enough that you get the metallic in there, but you don't have to add enough so much that you lose the depth of the modeling paste and it all being one-dimensional. So if you have a multitude of colors in with your modeling paste, that's okay, because of what we're doing.
Or can we use a different color?
You can use whatever color you want. I'm using bronze for this because I want to lay my darks on the bottom, and then I want to put my lighter colors on the top of this paint. And for those of you who are ambitious and like to experiment, there's nothing wrong with you taking a bronze and a gold and mixing it together to make a different color, or a gold and a silver, mixing it together to make a platinum. If you decide you want an extra color that we didn't purchase, you can also do that with your dark gray and your white. Mix those together and get a lighter white. I mean a lighter gray. You have the flexibility to do all of that. So as you're mixing up your modeling paste, begin to think about some of the patterns that you saw in those sample paintings that I had done before. Any patterns that you thought were interesting or appealed to you that you may want to use in your painting. Because now when we start to apply the texture is when you're going to start to create the pattern on your page. Because there's white in it, you're getting a lighter color of your bronze. Anytime we add a color and then add white to it, we get a lighter version of that same color. So your modeling paste added to the bronze, you may need to add a little more in order to have the shine of the model of the bronze come through. Okay, I'm going to start adding some of this, and I'm going to add it in different spots. I'm just going to start smearing it with my palette knife. Now you can buy real expensive palette knives, or you can buy plastic ones. I have some of both. I have some that are actually almost like a kitchen spatula that was made with rubber. Now if you see, I can leave some of this really blobbed up to create a really interesting texture. And I am going to do that. It will require drying overnight in order to maintain that structure. You can see I've got bronze and white showing through. And I like that because I don't want it all to look alike. Some of it I'm doing from the tippy top and some I'm doing from the middle. I can also take some and put some of it on the bottom.
Elaine, about how much of that paste did you put out to start with?
I did about 3 or 4 tablespoons. Now you got a big old jar, so we're going to use quite a bit of it. We're going to have some of it white and some of it this color, and we're going to use the modeling paste for most of the different colors. So you've got a lot to play with. And after I've done that, I think I want some more. So I'm gonna clean off this palette knife because you don't want to stick it back in the modeling paste. So if you just wipe it really good with a paper towel, you can usually get most of it off or get it all off, where you can re-dip your palette knife back into the modeling paste. So I'm gonna put it back in my plate, back on my plate. And at this point, you can add more of that color, or you can begin to engage with another color from your palette if you want.
My paste is looking like Zaxby sauce. Is it supposed to be glittery?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, if you add more metallic to it, because it's white, Mary, it's gonna tone it down. But
Okay.
the more metallic you add to it, it will become more glittery.
Okay.
Now use a free hand to lay this down. You know, don't be constrained. Don't feel like we're going to have straight lines. We're not going to have straight lines. We don't want straight lines. We don't want anything that looks too measured or precise.
Mine looks like chocolate milk. What can I do to, and I've kept adding color to it. Just, can I take the paintbrush back onto it later, or what's your suggestion?
We're going to add some more color as this background begins to dry some. So just go ahead and like dig through that. When the canvas background dries some,
Yeah.
we're going to add some more depth to it.
So I did my modeling paste with one metallic. What do I do next?
Okay.
Am I caught up, or because I don't want to go ahead, just stay
After
put?
after you get through with that one, feel free to take any of your other colors. Feel free to use your silver or your gold. And I'll show you what I plan on doing with the gold. After you finish this round of your modeling paste, you'll want to wipe your palette knife off. Remember to extend around the edge of your canvas. And then you're going to want to wipe your palette knife off with a paper towel. Get all the color off of it. And be sure that you've dried your paint brushes off with a paper towel. I'm going back and adding some color around the edge of my canvas. With what's left on my plate.
Elaine, is this like a super thick texture or is it just kind of scraped onto the canvas?
Scraped on. We want it to be, I wish I could turn this sideways maybe where you can see. Can you see that it's really on thick in some areas? Can you see?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome. So I'm cleaning off my palette knife and my brush and drying them out because we're going to add some drier paint. And it helps to have our utensils dried out to catch that paint in its raw form. Okay, does everybody have some of their modeling paste on their canvas? Okay, then what I want you to do is I want you to get your gold paint and your more narrow paintbrush. Can you see the texture?
Yes.
Yes, that helps. Thank you.
Okay. So now I'm going to take my gold, and if you need me to slow down, if you're still not at that point, feel free to stop me. I'm going to take my gold paint and I'm going to put it on the edge of my brush. And then I'm going to start putting it on the canvas so that it contrasts in between where I have my darkest and lightest pieces are places where I've put the bronze. So I want this to go in between because I don't want it to be covering up my darkest part of my bronze. I want the darkest part of my bronze to stay there. So I'm laying this gold color in between some of that. And I'm not doing it too smooth. I'm leaving some texture from the bristles. So if you scruff some of it or leave some of it standing up on top of the canvas, whatever you do is going to be fine. We're just going to have lots of contrasting layers. So scruffing some of it or smoothing some of it, either way, is going to provide a pleasing texture. Now notice I'm not starting at the top of the canvas and going all the way down. I'm just choosing random places to lay this gold color in. And then I want to back off and make sure that I don't have everything leaning from one direction. I want things to be more straight, because if you're standing to the right of your canvas and things start going sideways, it'll look like the viewer wants to think that lean. So you're going to want to make sure that you're standing right in front of your canvas, and that your stripes, if they're supposed to be straight stripes, that they're straight stripes and not diagonal, because we don't want it to be confusing to the viewer. Now, you can also take this same bristle brush and lay it, just try it and see what you think. Lay it on a piece of your modeling paste that you've got some texture, and kind of drag your brush through it just real lightly. Just like you were petting a dog, just real gently, so that you have just a few brush strokes on that, just so you can see if you like the texture that's being created there. Now also, I'm going to do something different here. I'm going to turn my brush sideways. We've been doing everything, or I have, all in one direction. So now I'm going to go sideways, and I'm going to start pulling. I'm going to start pulling from the side to get some interest in mine. Now, I'm not telling you you have to do that. I want you to see what it looks like on mine, because you may say, I don't like that. Now, I'm not going all the way across, but I'm just pulling to get some variance in texture. And I'm not pulling all from the same edge or the same place. But then you begin to get some hatch marks in your painting. So everything doesn't look like it's all vertical, but you're adding some horizontal interest. It also brings the color across in a new way. And I'm just barely holding on to this paintbrush. Now, some of you might want to try some diagonal. So it doesn't hurt. I'm going to try that and see what happens.
And is this paste dry white?
I beg your pardon?
Is the paste going to be white or clear?
My modeling paste is white.
So when it dries, it's going to still be white?
It's going to be whatever color is laying on your canvas right now.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
How can I change that color? It's ugly.
We're going to add some more colors to it, so we're going to see what you like at the end.
So are you running modeling paste through that now?
Now I'm taking, modeling paste is already on my canvas.
Right.
Just dragging my brush in different directions real lightly. I mean, I'm just barely holding the tip. If you hold a brush at the end, you will have a really light touch with it. The closer you hold the brush to the end, it's going to be more controlled. But if you want it to look more free, just barely hold the tip of the brush for whatever you're doing.
How do I get more white in mine?
We're going to do that in a few minutes. Remember, we're just working from our dark colors to our light colors. So Sarah, do you mind showing the painting that we're kind of working from, even though this one doesn't look like that? You'll see how there's so much white in this painting at the top that we're starting with our darkest colors first, and then we're going to add the light later. You see? Okay, now, has everybody done that with their modeling paste? And now I'm going to take some of my bronze and I'm just going to squeeze it onto my canvas. Remember, we're working from dark to light. So I'm just squeezing some of my bronze straight out of my bottle onto my canvas. So it just looks like silly string that the kids play with on the canvas. So now I'm going to take some of those strands. I'm going to leave some of them liquidy looking strands, but I'm going to take some of them and I'm just going to drag them out so I have some really dark spots in this canvas. But I am going to leave some of them really dark, and I'm going to leave some of them stringy because I want it to look like that on my canvas.
And you're laying your brush sideways.
I'm laying it sideways. And remember, I'm holding it at the tip, so the control is really loose and light. I'm leaving some of it stringy. I'm carrying it down to the edge of my canvas. I'm pushing it up. Now, I don't want this part to go over my modeling paste or cover that up. I really want it to go around it. So here's modeling paste, and here I'm going around it so it looks like the dark is behind that modeling paste.
Well, too late. I've already gone over the modeling paste.
Well, you can, but you haven't gone over all of it.
I just did.
You couldn't have gone over all of it.
You know me too well.
Because you would be really fast if you had gone over all the modeling paste.
Gotta remember, mine's a small one. It's a 12 by 36.
Well, the 36 is really long, so you couldn't have gone over all the modeling paste, Susan. If y'all don't know, the one that's talking is my sister. So I know y'all are wondering why she might be talking to me that way. Okay, so now you're seeing some depth in your canvas. So we have the modeling paste that's raised up. We're laying this bronze on there. We're smearing some of it out, and it's giving us a really nice deep dimension. Remember to carry it down to the edges of your canvas. So at the end, you're not having to go back and paint the edges. Okay. Is everybody ready to start doing some of their silver? Okay, so I'm going to take a little bit of my silver, and I'm not going to use as much of my silver as I did of the others, but I am going to kind of push it through the paint.
So this class, we have like a half hour left, right? I just feel like it's a lot left.
It's probably, we may go over a little bit. I don't want anybody to feel like we haven't finished. So it's probably going to be about a half an hour to 45 more minutes. Be sure you carry that around to the outer edge too. Now remember, we're not making the outer edge solid. We're just making it look like we've continued the art piece down the sides to the bottom. Now what I want you to be thinking about next is where you want to put. Remember, we saw where the raw elements such as the rock salt and the seeds and the barley and those types of things were put in different places on the canvas. Some of them they were put in the middle. Some of them they were put 3/4 of the way down. Some of them were put in a circular motion. I want you to be thinking about where you're going to want those natural elements to be. And when you can, I want you to get a pencil, and I'm going to tell you the meanings of those different elements so you'll be able to write them on the back of your canvas. Okay, I've decided that my natural elements, that I'm going to have them come here in the middle. I'm going to have them drop down to this edge. I'm going to have them go back to the middle. And so I'm gently scraping an area where I want them to go, just for my mind's sake. You don't have to do that, but it will help me get an idea of where I want to lay those. All right, so I know mine are going to be in the middle. They're going to come down this way. They're going to go back to the middle and come kind of down this way. So like I said, I've kind of scraped it out a little bit. So I have in my mind's eye where my natural elements are going to go. I kind of softened that area with my brush just so I would have a mental idea of where that's going to be. Okay, so now I want you to clean your brush, and we're going to start adding some of our lighter colors. Okay, I'm going to take a quick break to go wash out this bucket, run to the bathroom, and I'll be right back. This is a good time if you want to wash out your paint bucket, because we're going to use our lighter colors and we don't want the darker colors to influence them at this point. So we'll be back in about 3 minutes. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our next, we built from dark to light, and so we've put down our dark bronze and we put down our dark gray. So now we're going to take the next lightest shade, not our lightest shade, but the next deepest. And so I'm going to take that gray. Remember, we're building from dark to light. And I'm going to take that gray, and it's going to be the next layer that I put on my canvas. Now you're able to squirt this out on your paper, on your canvas, or use a brush or squeeze it. I'm using a palette knife because mine's kind of thick in the tube. And so I'm laying it on with a palette knife. And I think it looks nice if you lay it next to a color that's almost the same color, but just slightly darker. So I'm laying this lighter gray, this taupe, right next to my gray color. And it almost looks like a shadow or a highlight beside it. Now moving around the canvas. I'm not making anything a deliberate stripe. I don't want things to be matchy-matchy necessarily on the same side. You know, what I've done on the left, I don't necessarily want it done on the right. But again, if you will put this color next to your gray, it will make that gray pop. Now see what I'm doing? I'm turning my palette knife sideways and I'm dropping it off the side, and it's creating a whole new texture. The more different textures you have in this particular piece of art, I think the more pleasing it is. And again, like I said, I'm going up next to that gray because it makes it pop. Or next to the bronze, and it makes it pop. Just like you've turned your brush sideways, use the flat side and the raw edgy side. We're doing the same thing with the palette knife. We've used the flat side. Now we're using the blade edge. You could also use your fork, your plastic forks and knives at this point if you want to, or we can do some of that later. Remember to let this trail off the edge of the painting too, wherever you've done that, so it looks like the painting's continued off that edge. And then you can wipe some of the excess around the edge too, because eventually we want most of the edge covered, although we don't want it to be completely solid. Now this time I'm going to use a squiggle motion. However you move your palette knife. So now I'm using the flat edge, but I'm just squiggling. And I'm not going to do this too many times. I just want enough for it to be, for the viewer to go, oh, that's a new motion on that canvas. Okay, next we will use our next lightest shade, which would be your cream. And I'm actually going to take it and I'm just going to drop some circles. or some places. Now I'm going to put this not where I just did the squiggles or not where I just used the palette knife. I'm doing in spots that don't have any interest on it. So like here's a spot that kind of looks boring, so I'm going to put some right there. So if you've got a spot where you see like raw canvas and you don't want that there, I suggest that might be a good place for you to drop some of this cream color. Now you've dropped that cream color. Now what I want you to do is I want you to get your paper plate and some modeling paste. And I want you to put some modeling paste on your paper plate. Let's do about 4 more big tablespoons. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this and we're going to put it next to the cream colored paint that you just laid out on your canvas. So I'm going to lay it beside it and I'm going to start dragging around it. So this is going to put some white, but it's not our pure white because it's mixed with the cream and the modeling paste. I'm going to put it in some random places wherever I dropped that cream color. And then I can spread some out. So we've got some more texture. And we're just dragging it. Then I'm putting it next to the cream color, the modeling paste next to the cream color. I'm not making the modeling paste completely flat. I want it to have a lot of texture in it. We pay a lot of money to get a lot of texture. So we destroy that if we keep manipulating it. If you say you need more modeling paste than the 4 tablespoons, which I probably am going to need, let's go back and get some more. Just don't stick your colored paint back in that modeling paste. It's really hard to get out if you do that. You've got a couple of plastic forks. You can dig it out with a plastic fork if you don't want to have to go and clean your palette knife. As you move the cream color into the gray, you're going to end up with paler shades of gray. Or a darker taupe. Which increases the textural element of the paint. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes,
Can you hear me?
yes.
Okay. And if you're tired of using the palette knife, feel free to pick up your brush. That would just be more texture or a different kind of texture. Remember, if you use the edge of your knife, it's going to have a different texture than if you use the flat edge. If you do a stippling effect, you're going to have tight little peaks like you used to with popcorn sealing. Those of us that are old enough to know what popcorn sealing is, which will be a different, an additional texture on this. I know we're using lots of different shades and lots of different patterns and tapping motions and smearing motions, forks and knives, but I want to give you a sample of the different things you can do, so when you come back to do another one, you have more tricks in your arsenal. Okay, then you can take the edge of your palette knife and just scrape some if you want to, putting firmer pressure. I wouldn't do it over the whole thing, but it'll create some nice texture if you take the edge of your palette knife and dig in. Now remember, you don't have to do everything all vertical. You can do some side to side things. You get some new colors by doing that. New evidence that you're trying some new things. When you get ready to clean that off, just do it by tapping, getting that off that way. check your clothes and see if you have any paint on you, because it's better to try to get that off while it's wet. I got a little bit on me, so I'm taking care of that. When you get that done, you've got your pencil ready. I will go ahead and give you some of the symbolic descriptors for some of your natural elements. We'll give our piece a minute to sit. So if you wanted to write these down, in case you decide to use glass sometime, glass symbolizes vision. If you've used barley today, barley means provision by hand. Salt is preservation or seasoning. Gold represents the glory of God. Eggs are linked to potential. Lentils symbolize eating and being satisfied. Rice means sustenance and abundance. And using seeds is to sow, S-O-W, or generate new life. And we've talked about a lot of different elements today. Can you add to that list? Do any of you have some ideas that you would like to incorporate into this piece or another piece that you've been able to think of?
Elaine, tell me again what barley is.
Okay. Barley is provision by hand.
Hi, Elaine. I want to use some tiny oak leaves.
That would be beautiful, Barbara. I would love to see some tiny oak leaves. Would you, because they would be fragile when they dried, would they be okay to paint dried, or would you have to use them?
They're so tiny. Let me see how I can show them to you. I've got to figure out where the camera is on this. Can you see them in my hand?
Oh my goodness, where did
They're
you
really
find
tiny.
them?
We have the oak tree in our yard, and when they fall and dry, you know, they're a little more solid. And they're sort of in the color palette that I was using. So I figured maybe I could just put them on top and spray them with shellac at the very end or something.
Yes, or you could coat them with the Modge Podge.
Yeah, okay.
And I've even sprayed really delicate things with hairspray before.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And I found that that works really well. You just want to be sure that something couldn't destroy it or
Right.
eat it. Or that water or moisture wouldn't, you know,
Right,
degrade it. However, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's amazing to have tiny oak leaves. That's beautiful. Okay, I think we're next ready for this. And so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to use pure modeling paste, nothing but the modeling paste. And we're going to put it next to wherever we've used the cream, the shade that we just finished with. And you can put it on with a brush or a palette knife, whatever your choice is, or a fork. And because we haven't used the fork yet, I think I'm just going to put it on with a fork. I am going to put it on my paper plate though.
I thought we just put it on by itself. That's what I did. Oh, well, I didn't listen.
So get you about 4 more tablespoons of your modeling paste. And this one's more like a spork. So I'm going to put it on wherever I see some boring places. But we're not going to do too much of it here because we're going to use a lot of it wherever we're getting ready to put our materials that we plastic coated. But I am going to put some of it next to the cream to make it pop. Like I said, you can apply this with whatever you want to apply it with. I just decided I wanted to use the forks because I do like the texture that we get from the teeth of the forks. Don't cover up a spot that you like, remember. In this creativity, I know you'll look at the canvas and go, oh, I really like that spot. So just be sure you're putting this on a spot that needs some more interest. Of course, if you blend it up into the paint that's adjoining it, it's going to take on a new quality. And feel free to vary it. Just because I started with a fork doesn't mean that I may not finish it with a palette knife. And carry that also to the edge if you get up close to the top edge or the bottom edge. Now also when you're doing this, I had mentioned to you that you could use different brands. Some brands you will find are more glossy than other brand paints. And I do think it's fun to mix the glossy with the matte I think it brings a new dimension of elegance to the painting. And I usually do that. So if you decide when you finish this that you still want to add just a little bit of a glossy paint to it, feel free to do that. Remember, I said my paintings aren't always finished the day I think they're finished. Okay, and feel free to take your fork. You don't want to do it all over your painting, but in some places, draw the tines down so that you have a new dimension. Now look what happens here. If I take that and turn it sideways, it creates a whole new level of interest. I'm not saying you have to do it, but I'm just saying it creates something really new to do that off the edge of one of the colors. We were talking about the symbolism. I also have done paintings for people, right? It out in the texture just a little bit, something hidden in the painting for you. You know, I hope you can find it sometime. So I do think those kind of surprises. Sound okay?
No, sound's not good right now.
Okay, we're going to try swapping it to a different device.
It's okay now. A minute ago it was bouncing.
The sound is fine.
Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to use our white paint. We're going to add some more of our white paint. And I'm going to take my white paint and I'm going to kind of do a zigzag close to the area where I'm going to be putting my naturalized items. Okay, and I'm going to leave that sitting there for right now. And then in and around that spot, I'm going to begin adding my modeling paste. Now, at this point, our modeling paste is going to be the bottom glue layer that's going to hold our natural elements in. So we're going to want to make it thick
You have an
and,
echo.
and spiky. So I'm going to lay down the modeling paste where I want it to be the bottom layer for my naturalized items. And I want it to be thick and spiky. And it's close to the white that I just laid down, but not covering it up. And remember, don't cover up your points of interest that you really like, even though you're laying down where your natural elements are going to be. Can you hear me okay now? Is the sound okay?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, good. I'm almost to the bottom of this jar of modeling paste. So I may be slower than some of you girls. We want a really good thick layer to hold these elements down. You don't want it in a stripe across your canvas. You want it to be in, you know, varied locations. But you do want it very peaked edge, like you would peak meringue, so that you can put your elements down in it. Sometimes when you get to the end of your modeling paste jar, you'll have some parts that start to dry inside on the edges, but I just use those because I like the fact that even though they're going to dry and look the same, but I like the fact that they are thicker and will stand out and that you can go ahead and use them. So you may want to see and hear that it may look like the jar is getting too much material here that's dried up and not usable. But for a painting like this that you want a lot of texture, I just pull all that off, all that dried residue, and I just incorporate it in a spot where I think that I'm going to need some extra interest. I'm going to try that right here. And it's going to be really thick, but it's going to lay down and it will stick. All right, be sure you've put out a lot of your modeling paste really thick. Now we still are going to do something with those white pieces that we just drizzled out there in just a minute.
Elaine, I guess if I want my elements to be mainly on the side, then I would put the glue on the side more.
If you want the modeling paste, yes.
Okay.
Or where, I mean, you could put the modeling paste still in the center of your painting, but you'll want to have enough that it'll hold on your natural elements. Now,
Okay.
it's okay if you don't have enough, even though, I mean, you can still add to it once you start laying things down and you go, oh, it's not thick enough. You can still add more to it. You can still add more modeling paste. Okay, so now I've got a lot blobbed on for my natural elements. I still have the white. And you can still put modeling paste even if you're where you're not going to put natural elements, just for the interest of it. That's okay. I'm just saying wherever you're going to have the natural elements, you have to have a lot of modeling paste down for it to fit in there and stay without falling once you hang it on the wall.
Sounds like your little prissy wants some attention.
We do have one here that wants a little attention. Now I'm going to take a dry brush and I'm going to start working in that white paint that we drizzled just a little bit with the edge of the brush, just really lightly. So it's going to go behind the modeling paste and over some of the other colors. Now this is the time if you want more white on your canvas or more of another color, go ahead and drizzle it on there and start blending in really lightly. Remember, I'm holding the very back side of my brush, so I have a really light hand. And I don't want to brush so much that I begin to change the texture of things that I did with a palette knife or the fork by smoothing it out too much with a brush. And if you like the drizzle like it is, just leave some of it. It leaves a beautiful technique.
So Elaine, if we want to add some other color, but we don't want it to dominate,
Uh-huh.
where do we do it and what brush?
I tell you what I would do is I would take, Mary, I would take a little bit and I would position it close to the color that's most, has that same depth. For example, if you were going to do a navy blue, a dark navy blue, then I would put it closest to my darkest color on my page.
Okay.
I mean, on my canvas. If I were going to do something pale and say it was a real pale sky blue, then I may put it next to the white so I could blend it into the white a little bit. But you don't want it to be next to make a stark contrast.
And can you mix it with the brush that I've been doing the modeling paste with? Would that?
Yes, you can. Okay, when you feel like you have enough modeling paste down on your canvas, then we're going to start doing the natural elements. Now I'm adding some of the modeling paste just with my brush so I can stipple it and make it ready to hold elements. I want this to be some of the thickest part on my canvas. So next time y'all want to do one of these, be sure you buy your modeling paste when it's on sale, or use that 40% off coupon. All right, we're going to save the rock salt to put it down last. Did I have a question?
I was about to ask which one you were putting down first, but you were answering it, so never mind.
We're going to start with our darkest element.
Okay.
So whatever you colored with the darkest color, let's plan to put it down first. Now you'll want to be sure that your hands are clean so you don't transfer paint to what we're doing next.
So my rice that I did earlier is rock hard, like the knife is stuck in it. So is that useless at this point then?
Is it your plastic knife?
Yes, it's my plastic knife. I'm worried about the rice. So I can't,
I can't spread it. It's like a rock, solid like a rock.
Can you get, I've got rice too here. So can you get a fork and or pull it out and break it up? Mine's breaking up with my fingers.
I tried to break it up and it, oh, in your fingers, huh?
Uh-huh.
Well, let me give it a shot. I tried to break it up with a knife and I poked a hole through the cup. So let me.
And look, even if it's a big blob like this, that's perfect. I'm sticking it down in there. Because we don't necessarily want them all separate. So I'm going to take my darkest elements, which are my sunflower seeds, and I'm going to sprinkle them in different spots. Now, I don't want them to make a row all the way across. I want them to be in several spots. And just because I'm laying them out doesn't mean they're all going to stick there, because I'm going to have to press them down if they're not already sticking. But I'm going to lay them all where I want them to go first. And I've scattered these, but you don't have to scatter them. You may want to put one element one place and another element a different place. You know, it's up to you what your level of interest is as to where you want things. Remember, whatever you don't use, you're able to save for another art piece. You don't have to use everything. Now, I would say save your eggshells, those of you who did eggshells, till after we do the rock salt. So I'm able to dig my fork out, and I can take my fork that was in the bronze and I can tap it over. And it's okay if some of the white gets on top. I'm tapping it to push my elements down into the modeling paste. Now remember, when you pick this up tomorrow, some of them are going to fall off. You have the option of putting them back on, and I'm going to show you how to do that, or throwing them away. Now you can also spread some of them out so it looks like some of them are falling. It's okay if some of them get buried down in the modeling paste. That's okay too. Just press to see how many of them you can get to stick in your modeling paste. Okay, so those are my sunflower seeds. Now I have a big blob of lentils, and so I'm just going to leave them all together. That way I don't have to worry about whether they're going to stay together or not. I like the fact that they're all together. And I'm going to put these in the middle of those so that it looks like that the sunflower seeds are surrounding the lentils. So you may want to do some of that, putting them next to one another. And then if you crumble them, say I'm sprinkling them, I'm kind of rubbing them between my fingers like I was trying to get it off my hands, and letting some of that get in there that way. Okay, after you get your bronze ones in, you're going to want to put your gold ones, if you did some silver or other colors. I'd save them. I'd use whatever you put your gold on next. And what I've done over here is I've made it look like that gold is falling. So you can make it look like it's falling and have just a little bit of it at the end. I do like the lighter colors, either bordering the inside or the outside of the darker colors. I think it gives a rich depth to it. And use your knife or your palette knife to push those down in the modeling paste. Okay, the last one we're gonna, or the next to the last one, we're gonna do our rock salt. And the way I want you to do the rock salt is I want you to get your Modge Podge. I started to say hodgepodge. I guess I did say hodgepodge. And so we're going to drizzle our Modge Podge where we want to put our rock salt. Now remember, the Modge Podge is going to dry clear mostly. And so that way you can have some of the rock salt on top of some of your natural elements. You can also cover some of your natural elements with the Modge Podge. And it's going to give them an extra dimension. It's going to give them an opportunity to stay glued in. I had you buy a big enough jar that it's okay if you use most of it. Save some of it for you to add your pieces that may come off tomorrow. Okay, I've drizzled my Modge Podge, so I'm going to start putting my rock salt down. My rock salt still has a lot of Modge Podge in it. I can feel it. Now, the good thing about it is you're not having to go buy more. If you decide you want more rock salt or more lentils, or you want to incorporate some sand or something else that we did not do today, you already have most of the ingredients at home to do what you need to do in order to be able to do that.
Now, Elaine, are you doing the rock salt before you do the silver?
I did not coat any silver, so I would do the rock salt last.
Okay.
But save the eggshells till very last.
Okay.
Whatever color you did your eggshells, just save them till the very last.
Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome. So if you see some of your Modge Podge that's too drippy, feel free to spread it out kind of with your fingers after you get your rock salt in it. so that it looks more like an element of the painting and not glue. Because you don't want it to, I mean, you want it to hold your elements, but you don't want somebody to go, oh, she just got a whole bunch of glue on her painting. You want them to think that it's an acrylic or a polyurethane or something, you know, that's artistic. So I would spread that out enough that it doesn't look like glue. And feel free to use your fork or palette knife or whatever you want to create that sort of dynamic. But I just wanted to smooth out the edges. So, and I don't mind you have.
When the rock salt dries, how's it gonna look? White
It's going to look clear like diamonds.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Or translucent. It's going to look, you know, like a crystal type. Now, I will tell you this, that I did have some metallic powder, and Susan gave me some mica powder for my birthday, and this is what it looks like. I do not know if it will generate the same effect, but I'm going to try it. It's by Pearl X, and this one happens to be a pack that's got multitude of colors. It has a lot of different colors. And so I had some that looked like a jar like this. It's not labeled. I have not tried it, but let me tell you what happened. I took the one that was silver and gold, and I sprinkled powder at this phase on my painting. I sprinkled the gold powder on my painting, so I think I'm going to try some just to see what happens. And then when it hit the salt and the glue, the next day it oxidized and turned a most beautiful teal, like when copper oxidizes. So I don't know, you know, this is an experiment today. I don't know whether this is the same stuff that I had, because I bought it on clearance and it didn't have a label or anything on it. And so I don't know if it's the very same thing, but I am going to try some to see if it works, because it was so beautiful when it happened. My daughter said, oh, Mother, you've ruined the painting. But it was really absolutely beautiful because of that chemical reaction that had taken place. So I'll let you know what happens. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is, now that we have our rock salt in, now we're going to put our eggshells down. And so some of the eggshells will hold together like this. And some of them will break apart. But I just like the fact that they're thin enough that they can go on top of the rock salt if I want them to. And so you may want to put these where you've got a lot of extra glue showing, because you know that they will really adhere to that well. I like the fact that some of them are concave and some of them are convex. It gives a beautiful dimension.
the Modge Podge gets on top of the eggshells, will it still show the iridescent color after it
Yeah.
dries?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Mhm. And I'm gonna try putting some of this gold powder, we'll see if it works, over the salt and the polymer.
Elaine, I got behind.
It's okay.
Do I put the Modge Podge on before I put the rock salt?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, when everybody gets caught up, the last thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to go back to my darkest color, and I'm going to use a palette knife. I'm going to put some of that darkest color around the edges where I see the darkest color. I want some extra depth. If you were doing a navy blue or a dark color or something like that, this is where you could do that at that point. But I want to add some of my darkest color and I want it to be close to my elements. Because I want some extra depth. And I'm putting it in random spots closest to the darkest color. But because the darkest color was put on with water, it's going to be lighter than this. So this is going to create a darker effect and give you that richness to make everything elevate off the canvas. Now, I don't want to put it all over, but I want to put it in some strategic places all around the canvas so the eye is drawn to that. And if you scruff it, it'll spread it and give you a nice depth. Again, I'm putting it near where the darkest color is already on my canvas with paint. And I'm just adding it in to create an extra depth. If you see any loose pieces, go ahead and take a palette knife and kind of fluff them over to that Modge Podge and modeling paste. I love the layers that this is giving it. Now remember, you have your fork and your knife. You're not limited to palette knife or brush. Okay, then the way I'm going to finish mine up is I'm going to take some of my metallic paint and I'm going to drizzle it. Now you don't have to do this. It's up to you. I just like the effect. I don't do it on all my paintings. I do it on some. I just like the effect. I'm not going to do it on all over the canvas, just in random places. Some I'll blend, some I won't. If you get some on your fingers, it's okay. Just wipe it on your canvas. No point in wiping, wasting some good leftover. Now, if you decide you want to, and I'm not saying you have to, I'm saying it's risky, but you can tilt your painting up and get some drips going that way. Now, I told you you could use different types of paints from different companies for a different effect. This one may be a little bit too yellow for my liking. If I don't like it, I may take it off, but this happens to be a different company's gold. And so I'm going to put some of it on here and see what happens when it dries tomorrow. Because when you wake up, tomorrow will be the surprise. Now, always remember, you're going to sign your art piece, but I think the canvas is too wet to do it tonight. I think it would be better to sign it tomorrow. A lot of artists think the only way to sign a painting is with paint, but I personally prefer to sign mine with an ink pen or a gel pen because I have more control. Some people do felt tip pens. I would just not do something that's going to be too big. I've got a friend, though, that does sign her name huge on the side of her painting, so you could see it from 50 feet, but I prefer a smaller signature, but I want you to feel free to sign it however you want.
sure where the lid is. That's all I'm gonna do other than clean up after I let everybody say if they want to show theirs.
Hey, Elaine.
Yes.
I am gonna need to go, but thank you.
Well, that really was the very last step, other than everybody signing their name. And if anybody wants to show their art or send us an email, we would love for you to send us a photograph. We could put some of them on maybe even on our website. We'd love for you to share. Would anybody like to show your artwork and let us see what you've done?
I can show you mine.
Great, Melissa. I'd love to see.
Hopefully you can see it. Can you see it?
Yes, it's at an angle, but I love that.
Is that, I don't know how to make it better. It's a laptop, so is that better?
Oh, yes, Melissa, that's good. Yeah, don't let it tilt so much that you lose your element. But you have done a wonderful job.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting this and doing all this. I appreciate it a lot.
Listen, it's been fun for me. Thank you so much for joining in. I hope you'll come back to Regenesis Guild, Melissa. We're going to be doing some things, and you're so talented. We'd really like to network with you on our meet and greets sometime.
Oh, thank you.
Here's my opinion.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
That's Leilani.
let's see what you've done.
Can you see it? I'm holding it.
Okay, the email will be going out with the video, so everybody will be able to see all of us and what you've created if you're willing to show your work. Thank you so much. I hope you had fun.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
sharing
Elaine.
with us. Anybody else want to share?
I don't think I can tilt my pad. I've got to have it plugged in. I can't tilt it right now, but I'll send it
Okay.
later.
Listen, if you'll send us a picture, we would love that.
Thank you, Elaine.
Thank you so much for participating. God bless you all. Thank you for joining in.
Show you mine. Justin went inside. He had to go do something. I don't know. I broke a lot of rules.
Grace, that's okay. I told you there were no rules with this.
Okay, so this is mine.
Oh, wow. I love that. Is that blue or turquoise?
It's blue.
Oh, that's great. How much fun. You really have a lot of texture on there.
Yeah, a lot of texture. And then I'll show you Justin's. He had to go in, but this is, we collaborated.
Yes, you did. Oh, how much fun. Oh, there's so much richness and depth to that.
Yeah, you would love to hear that. But yep.
Now, just remember, tomorrow, if the elements start coming off, you can add more Modge Podge to the top of it to hold it on.
Yeah, that sounds good. We have enough Modge Podge.
Good.
Yay.
Thanks, Grace. I appreciate that. Well, listen, it looks like we have gone over our time a little bit. I'm so grateful to you for joining in today and hope that you will come back to Regenesis Guild and participate in some of our other workshops. We would love to have you. We'll be doing a meet and greet also at the end of January. And it's just a time where people get to know one another and say what you're interested in. And I think it would be fun if some of you could connect with us through that. It's usually about an hour long and hour and 30 at the most, but we just take a few minutes to take a break and see what other people are interested in and find out who you are and where you're from. We've had people from Europe and Asia and the States, all over the continental United States join us, and we'd love to have you join us too. So thank you so much. If there's anybody else that's not going to share, then we will just say adios and come back to Regenesis Guild and join us again next time.
Thanks.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.